I think we're recording. People are joining.
Brilliant. Just having a look to see if there's any names I recognize. Oh, a couple of people I recognize. Oh, a few people. It's always nice to recognize a few people that you know. But lots of people I don't. I'm always up for meeting people. So nice to meet people that will become friends at some point in the future.
Yes, we were just talking about how small a world it has become to easily stay connected on LinkedIn and
Absolutely.
other channels.
Yeah.
So we'll give people another minute or so, and then we can kick it off.
Brilliant. Sounds good.
And if people have questions, Travis, we are using the Q&A, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll do some housekeeping, but if you have questions as we go, please, we love questions. Use the Q&A at the bottom. We'll keep an eye on those. And then we also have room at the end for any outstanding questions. And Emma, I think you have the slides.
I do. Let's get
You
them shared. Yeah.
share away.
Let's get going. Okay, I think you can see those, right, Tarik?
Yes, I can. Looks beautiful.
Awesome. So I'm really excited about this session. Really honoured that you invited me to come speak on this series and to talk about this topic, where internal comms is going, something that's really close to my heart. In fact, I saw my colleague Lee Smith's name on the attendees. So Lee and I are currently head down writing a book about this very topic. So you're gonna be hearing some hot off the press sort of insights and nuggets today. But this is all about, I guess, this paradigm shift that we are witnessing. We want to see in internal comms. So AI powered, people first, consumer grade. So I'm really chuffed that you asked me to get involved, Tarik. And I think meeting you was kind of real. It was a real meeting of like-minded minds, wasn't it? You know, I think we were very much on the same page.
Yes.
Right? So yeah, so very excited to get involved. So yeah, me and you, Tarik, today we're kind of leading the charge, aren't we? We are
We
determined
are.
to kind of drag IC kicking and screaming into this new world, right?
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, you are such a thought leader in the space. I was so excited to do this session with you, especially since we're calling it IC Thought Leadership. It made natural sense. But for those that don't know who you are, do you want to give the 35,000-foot overview?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it succinct, which anyone that knows me knows it's a real challenge, being ADHD. I will try. So I'm Emma. I started life as an academic, as a behavior change psychologist, which I loved. Fell into the corporate world kind of accidentally at the end of the 90s in my first IC role. Absolutely loved it. So I did 10 years in-house looking after internal comms, employee engagement, well-being, and employee experience. Set up People Lab 15, 16 years ago, working with kind of companies all over the world, doing great work in terms of, when I say great, obviously that sounds quite immodest, but what I mean is doing work that really kind of is core to who I am as a person, which is all about helping people to have a good experience at work. I feel like, you know, you're a long time at work and it shouldn't be a bad experience. Actually, everyone benefits when it's not. So that's what really drives me. And then I mentioned Lee before that I'm writing the book with. So Lee and I set up the EX Space, which is our membership-based learning community. Launched that about 18 months ago now. So I'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But that's me. And I'm mum to 3 kids. Say kids, they're kind of growing up fast. Passionate about music, play a bit of bass, go see a lot of gigs, go to a lot of festivals, love traveling. So yeah, that's me.
And based on your accent, you're clearly based in Canada.
I'd love to be Canadian. That'd be so cool. Yeah, I live in Hastings in the UK, which is kind of big news in the UK because Battle of Hastings is where you know, William the Conqueror kind of shot Harold in the eye. But for anyone outside of the UK, probably won't mean anything. But yeah, I live in Hastings on the south coast, by the sea, and it's very beautiful here. So if anyone's in the UK at any point, hit me up, and I'd love to meet you for a coffee or some food or something. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm Tarik. I'm the CEO and founder of Cerkl. So people always ask me, why did you pick such a silly name for a company? And I am a nerd. And as I learned about the complexity involved with internal communication, this is years and years and years ago. As a technologist, I thought really the only way we can engage people at scale is through machine learning and AI, really following the Netflix model. And so the word circle is the idea of a feedback loop. And most of you are communicators and you understand, you send something out, you want to understand how that's received. So that's where the idea of Cerkl came from. And as I said, I am a nerd. I am fascinated with this problem of how do you communicate and engage people at scale without overwhelming them. That's the complexity of this. So we did our first kickoff to the IC Thought Leadership series last month with Steve and Cindy Crescenzo. They're fantastic. They're out of Chicago and they're just no nonsense. Here's how people want to be communicated to. So if you missed that, you can go back and listen to that, watch that. But this session is really thinking kind of forward looking. What is the future of IC? So with that, I'm going to kick it back to you, but just for those people that have joined late, housekeeping, we're going to send you all of this after. So you'll have access to the recording, you'll have access to all the slides. We're going to use AI to convert this into a 20-minute or so podcast. So you'll be able to hear this in podcast format. We have some giveaways that we'll be talking about at the end. And if you have any questions, we have a QA feature within Zoom. So just fire them away and get to as many as we can. So with that, Emma, let's get started.
Thanks, Tarik. And just to say, I can't see the Q&A whilst I'm in presenter mode. So if we've got questions coming through, feel free to interrupt my flow. So I'm quite happy for you to interrupt me and ask questions as we go. So I'll leave that to you.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's get started then. So I'm going to talk today about, like I said, this kind of like, I suppose, paradigm shift. I'm really passionate about this, that it's time for us to really take a new approach to internal comms. And I'm going to explain what I think that looks like and why we need that as I go through the slides today. I've already name checked Lee twice. I'm going to name check you again, Lee. So for those of you in internal comms, you might have come across this amazing piece of kind of research that happens every year called State of the Sector. It was actually started by my colleague Lee when he ran a company called Gatehouse. I've got an infographic here from 2016, but I think it's been going a lot longer than that. Gatehouse got bought by Gallagher. Gallagher continued this report, and it comes out every year, and it's kind of a real benchmark report for what is happening in internal comms. So why have I put this up there? The reason is it's actually quite depressing when you read through the backlog of all of these reports, because what you see is that very little changes. Every year, time and again, the same issues come up, the same problems are still kind of, confounding internal communicators. Nothing much is changing. Just as one example, working with line managers and helping line managers to get good at communicating comes up year after year. We still haven't cracked that nut. Visibility, a seat at the table. We hear these things time and time again. And, it gets to the point where, the report comes out and you think, great, you look at it, you think, well, there's nothing new in there. It's the same old stuff, right? So I wanted to start with that in terms of kind of creating this argument for why we need a new approach. And then if we look back, right, so I got my first internal comms job in 1998, so show my age here. And for those of you that are millennials or Gen Zs, you'll be probably thinking, what on earth are those weird machines on the left-hand side? So I think one's a bit of a phone fax machine. We had our own fax machine in our student house in the 90s, because that was the way we communicate with people. And the old style mobile phone. So this was kind of the world that I was coming into, in internal comms. So although we didn't use fax to communicate with employees, and we definitely didn't use mobile, we used a lot of print. We were just starting to put in intranets. So one of my first projects in my first IC job was to work with the tech guys to put the first intranet in. The world was very different back then. I mean, 2025, although we've got like probably, slightly slicker, slightly cooler kind of channels, if you like, the way that we communicate fundamentally hasn't really changed. A lot of it is kind of very expert led. We're the experts as communicators. We decide what we want to, how we want to communicate with people, and we push it out there through lots of channels and kind of job done. So nothing much has really changed. But if you think about what's happening externally, right? Consumer grade experiences are really slick now. So you think about, I mean, I'm a massive Spotify fan. I said before, I love music. Spotify knows me so well. It suggests playlists for me that are spot on. I love my Spotify Wrapped. It even now, gives me heads up on tickets. If you're really into bands, you listen to them a lot on Spotify. There's a band in the UK that I love called the Beta Band. For those of you that like music, they're featured on a film called High Fidelity. And Spotify recognized I was a top Beta Band fan, and I got early access to tickets for their gigs. So this is like really intelligent, really clever. It's a really slick experience. It's a consumer grade experience. And obviously Netflix, I mean, there's nothing worse than when one of my kids uses my Netflix login and they mess with my algorithm. I'm like, because I love the way Netflix knows me so well, Amazon. So externally, we have this pretty good consumer grade experience when it comes to interacting with these companies and the way they communicate with us. We are light years behind this inside organizations. We are not anywhere near this yet. And I know, Tarik, you've got something to say about that later on, because you've got some fantastic tools that absolutely do address this problem. But we talk about, the need for a consumer grade experience inside organizations, because the gap was pretty wide many years ago. And now it's a huge gulf, right, between externally and internally. So there's a lot of work to do there.
And I'll just add real quick, I'll just add to that slide, Emma.
Go for it.
So as a technologist, and where the entire idea for Cerkl and broadcast came from was, I was thinking about this problem for my children's school. That's where this whole thing began, is how do we get more parents engaged with our school district? For me, I was on the school board for my kids, and I would run into Emma at the grocery store and I would say, Emma, why weren't you at this event, Careers in Communication? And you would say to me, I did not know about it. I was like, how are you missing this? We send stuff on Facebook, Twitter, notes in kids' backpacks. And it was the same answer for everyone. And so as I kept researching this, I realized what was happening is we are overwhelmed with communication.
Yeah.
The statistic that cemented for me that there was really only one path forward to communicate and engage at scale was when I saw that we as a collective society create more content every 3 hours than we did from the beginning of time to 2003 combined. So if you think about every book, every movie, every piece of music ever created, we eclipse that in hours. And so there's so much communication, people are naturally, maybe subconsciously, ignoring things. And if you think about your own inbox, you are being trained when someone sends you an email. If it's not relevant to you, if they miss, you don't find value in it, then you just leave it unopened. And then eventually in your mind, you think, I'll eventually get to all of those emails, and we don't. We do a select all delete just to make ourselves feel better. Everybody does it because what we are finding is that people value their time more than anything else, more than any currency in the world. Time is the most valuable thing. And so when you look at things like Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, So what they're doing is the same. They make Emma feel like she's the only one they have because everything is tailored to her. Why? Because they understand you value your time. So now I don't know if you had this in the UK. We had Blockbuster back in the day. Yes,
We
and you
did.
go out and rent a tape. And so if you think about that experience of getting in the car, walking around the store, you can't remember if you've seen it or not, whether it was any good or not. Then you've got to go check it out. You got to pay. You got to drive home. And then the deadline approaches of when you have to have that tape back to them. Right. And people lose their minds because how time consuming is that process? Whereas Netflix is instant and it knows you and it learns about you and it's saving your time to the point of 85% of what people watch on Netflix is what it recommends for you to watch on Netflix because it knows you that well. Spotify, Amazon, they're all doing the same thing. They learn about you, what you like, what you don't like, and every experience across every touch point is tailored to you. And why this is important is because we wrestle with the same things with employees. It's leading into this conversation around consumer grade. So I just wanted to give some context of why these things work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people inside organizations now are demanding a consumer grade experience. I love this quote from Gallup. We use this a lot. Employees have become the consumers of the workplace. This quote is pretty old now. It's about 8 years old. And this has really underpinned the work we do at People Lab for many years and the work of the EX space. And it's, it's been quite a tough journey to work with, professionals across, different organizations to get them to really start to adopt this mindset, right? But I think the world is changing really fast now. And what we're seeing is that this idea of, consumer grade experience, if you overlay that, the fact the robots are coming, right? So the world of AI, things have changed so quickly. I think those two things give us our burning platform when it comes to internal comm. So what do I mean by this? So I'm sure lots of you are using AI, whether you're using ChatGPT or Copilot or Midjourney, whatever you're using. It is a game changer. And I started kind of playing around with it over a couple of years ago now, and now I use it pretty much every day, right? So Lee and I are going to be talking a lot about this in the book, a people first internal comms approach. What we're saying is that a lot of the work of internal communicators, right, AI can now do. Right. So don't get depressed yet, because I think this gives us an amazing opportunity. But for example, AI can write us a brilliant comms plan. It can give us a great stakeholder map. It can analyze employee data to a depth that we have just not been able to do. It can even create personas for us, right? So what this does, it gives us this amazing opportunity to actually focus on the stuff that really matters, the human side of things. So I see this as a real positive, but there's no doubt that there's a burning platform when it comes to internal comms, and the process factors, as we call them, the stuff that used to take up a lot of our time, that stopped us from doing the real human work. Now AI can kind of do all of that for us, kind of quicker, faster, better than we could alone. So I think this is an amazing opportunity. I'm not going to read through all this, but just to kind of make this point, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both, right? So as I said, AI can, draft amazing copy at scale. I've trained the AI I use to my tone of voice, and it's got it. It's there, personalized messages. So I remember a quick story here. When I first started internal comms, I had this idea of using employee personas. I was working with the tech guys on the intranet, and they introduced me to user experience personas. I thought, great, let's develop some personas for internal comms. This is like the end of the 90s, so quite ahead of its time, really. And we went away, we developed about 6 personas, really well intentioned. And then I found out about the marketing team who had this thing called Mosaic software. And Mosaic software, right, you could plug in postcodes, and it would give you kind of like a synopsis of the sort of person that would live at that postcode. So what paper they would read, what level of education they had, what sort of communication they wanted. And I was like, wow, imagine if we use this for internal comms, that would be fantastic. of course, the reality was when I plugged in, this is before GDPR, plugged in all of the postcodes of our workforce at the time, got about 90 different mosaic profiles back, which was a lovely idea, but I couldn't do anything with that. I had a team of 5 people at the time. We couldn't do anything with that. So we went back to our personas. And even then we were like, well, it's a great idea to have these personas, but the idea of, you know, targeting different sorts of comms to different sorts of people and writing different types of copy for different personas, we just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. So right intention, but at that time it wasn't realistic. Fast forward 20 odd years, 26 years, we can do this now, right? So now AI can do this for us. So finally we can personalize at a level that we never thought possible. So this is why this is so exciting. And for me, this frees us up to do the real work of comms, which is to really genuinely, truly understand our people, understand the nuances of the culture, make sure that, you know, we authentically reflect the organization, coach our leaders. We might be able to finally crack that line manager issue that I mentioned before. So for us, the shift is from process-driven IC to experience-driven IC. So yes, AI can automate, can free us up, but humans design. We design the experiences, engage, inspire. So I'm really super excited about this and to see where this goes. I'd love to hear your views on this. So yeah, so just to kind of reinforce that, don't worry, right? I think the future is really bright because we're going to be able to do so much more, and we're going to be able to do all the things that we dreamt about, things I dreamt about back in 98 that I really wanted to do as an internal communicator. We're going to be able to do this now. So the future of IC, AI powered, it's people first, and it's consumer grade. So that's kind of the background, if you like. So where does this take us then? So we believe we're moving from kind of like an expert-led to a kind of people-first consumer-grade experience. And we're going to need a whole set of new skills and tools to do this. So in the future, we won't just be experts in IC. And actually, it's not very helpful if we're just experts in IC because AI can do so much of that now. It can write brilliant copy, it can write great comms plans, it can come up with fantastic measurement plans for you. But things like design thinking, so innovation, service design, human-centered problem solving, that's where we can really dial up the human-centered skills. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So some really interesting research from the World Economic Forum, and happy to share the report with you. It's well worth a look. Talks about the most in-demand skills. And you might think with the rise of AI and tech that technical skills would be where it's at, but actually it's not the case. The most in-demand skills are shifting from technical knowledge to human-centered capabilities, right? So the question isn't if AI is going to change work, because it is already changing work. It's how we can prepare ourselves. And we believe the future is in these kind of areas of like human-centered approaches, design thinking, service design. And just to bring this to life a little bit, going a bit deeper into the WF report, these are some of the skills that it says are going to be needed in the future, if not now, right? So creativity, innovation, human-centered design, empathy. I won't read them all through, but you get the picture. These are all skills that you develop and hone when you become an expert in those human-centered approaches I mentioned. So for example, you know, design thinking, service design, agile. So this is where the future is for internal communication, I believe, because AI can do a lot of the kind of stuff that took up our time, and this frees us up to really focus on honing these skills. So I think this is where it's going. I think this is really exciting. And by its very nature, when we take this kind of approach to internal comms, we are taking a people-first approach. So rather than us as experts doing to our people, we are making them feel like they're the only person, to your point, Tarik. So again, just to kind of sum up some of this thinking. So move from transactional to transformational IC. And again, I won't read through all that copy there, but you'll have these slides to look at. I think on the left-hand side, that'll feel pretty familiar to a lot of you. So it's all about, you know, more generic, more broadcast. It's about what the organization wants to tell the people or communicate the people on something. So we want to run a town hall or do a CEO newsletter or whatever it might be, or talk about our performance or our values. We talk about channels and messages on the left-hand side. And the measures are often kind of that we call vanity measures, process measures. So clicks and likes, but so what, you know, expert-led. we're moving into a space where it's, much more personalized, and tools that Tarik's going to share with you in a minute are going to be able to help us to do that. It's human-centered. We're seeing our people as our customers. We're talking about behavior change, and it's people first. It's a mindset. So I'm going to talk about tools in a minute, but this is a mindset. You need to kind of get in the right mindset to do this. So it's about curiosity. It's about empathy. It's about experimentation. It's not about saying, oh, well, we already do all of this. Because it's a little bit like, I've sat down with some teams. They say, well, we already do this, Emma. We do an audit once a year. That is not what I'm talking about. Can you imagine your colleagues in marketing saying, yeah, we go out once a year and ask our customers how they feel about our products and services? You wouldn't have a business if you did that. So we need to become as obsessed about our people as customers in the same way that our colleagues in marketing, customer experience are obsessed about really knowing the customer, putting the customer first. We need to have that kind of curiosity. No one is better placed, in my opinion, to genuinely know employees well than internal comms. Right. So I think there's a real kind of advantage that we have there as a profession to really add some value by doing this and knowing this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about tools now, and I think I'm going to hand over to you. I'll stop sharing there. Hand over to you, Tarik, to just give us a bit of a walkthrough how your amazing product can start to do some of this really cool stuff that I'm talking about here.
Yes, and before I do that, so let me ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
My favorite word that you said, well, you've said many great words, but my favorite was empathy. I think people find it almost overwhelming, right? They're seeing all the things on one side of the slide, and this is where I know we should be there. And it feels overwhelming. And when we talk to customers, really the people that are reaching out to us already kind of believe that. We believe we should be more human-centered. We believe we should be led with empathy. And I love it. And I always go back to them and I say, that experience is one in which you yourself would like. If you were the one receiving all this communication across all these channels, how would you want that to make you feel? That's really, if we boil it down, what we're trying to achieve. And I think if you ask the people at Netflix or Amazon or Spotify or anybody else, they would say, we want Emma to feel like she's unbelievably important to us, and that we're tailoring everything to her because we value her and we value her time. So if we started to look at everything through that lens of empathy, all of a sudden, I think it becomes easier to see where we want to go. That, to me, is more a kind of a simplifying framework. But then I would guess that most people on this webinar would say, Emma, that's all well and good. I get it. I'm very empathetic. I create great content. I know what a good user experience would feel like. What's the business value? How would I convince leadership that we need to change anything? Because they're so focused on our customers, our product, sales, marketing. How do we get a voice? Like, what's the business value? You would say, all right, here's your pitch to leadership to think differently. How would you respond to that question?
So there's a few things here. So when we talk about empathy, just to kind of build on your points, Tarik, we talk about standing in the shoes of the people you're designing for, right? So straight away, my challenge back to comms is like, you think you might know, but do you? Where's your evidence for that, right? So I'll talk through some tools in a minute, but some really cool, really simple tools. This stuff does not have to take lots of time and energy and effort. The tools are designed deliberately to be really quick and easy and agile to use, right? So something like an empathy map, and I can share an empathy map with people after the call. It's a really simple kind of canvas to get you to think about, what are people seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, doing? What are their pains? What are their gains? Now, you can have a go at doing that yourself. You might have some data and insights, and here's AI can help you with this. Or you might say, you know what? I can't answer this. I need to go out and actually speak to some people. So just get it, put a 60-minute or a 90-minute call in, get a bunch of people using a Miro board. They will tell you. They will tell you how they're thinking, feeling, what their pains and gains are. You've heard it from the horse's mouth, right? 60 minutes. Now, for me, start with that and then go share it with your senior people, because your senior people will have assumptions as well. They'll say things like, oh, you know, people don't like email, or they'll say people want to hear about X, Y, and Z. They'll have their views. It's because they're senior folks, right? In my experience, the minute you present them with the evidence, it blows their minds. So, quick example, it's not necessarily specifically internal comms. We were at KPMG in the UK to redesign their onboarding experience. And we got a bunch of people in a room for a day and we did a design sprint with them. And they're people that had recently joined. And we heard from them, you know, how it was for them. We did a whole load of activities with them. We went and presented that to the senior team. And my client there said in all of her years working at KPMG, she has never got a faster, quicker, yep, great, just get on with it, because they heard the evidence from the people who've been through it. And actually, in my experience, senior people really want to hear that. They want to know, they're desperate to know what's really going on in my business. And often they just can't kind of get to it. So that would be the way that I would do that piece. So just do a quick experiment, 60 minutes of yours and other people's time, gather the evidence, then go back and play it back. And that's what will really get them to sit up and take notice.
That's great. Great advice. Okay, so recap there is actually go do the work, get the evidence, prepare a presentation. How do you think a consumer grade employee experience would positively impact the bottom line of a business?
Yeah, I mean, there's an overwhelming body of evidence that shows that it does, right? So a McKinsey report shows that, you know, top quartile kind of EX companies outperform on performance, productivity, financials, everything. So any business outcome you want to look at, I can find you some reports, some evidence to show you that that it's going to make an impact. And you know, that's easy to do that bit. What's then difficult is then you see the stakeholders will say, yeah, but we're different. We're special. That wouldn't work here. And that's trickier, right? So again, you've got to take an evidence-based approach, which is why I'm such a fan of design thinking service design, because it's all about experimentation, prototyping, testing. You haven't got to solve everything in one go. You take a pilot, you take a small experiment, you just demonstrate proof of concept. You go back and say, well, we've tried this, look at the impact it had. So that would be the way that I would do that. I also love the neuroscience as well for persuading cynical kind of senior people that this stuff works. So this can feel quite fluffy. And what's happening, I'll try and be quite succinct here, is when we have a great experience at work, and this includes a great communication experience, right? So when we go onto Netflix or Spotify, when Spotify says to me, hey, you're a top beta band fan, we'll give you early access to tickets, and I get that ticket, I feel brilliant. I go, yay, I'm so excited because tickets sold out straight away. They haven't played for like 25 years, Tarik. I'm so over the moon about seeing them, right? I get a rush from that. Now, what's happening when you experience something really positive, your brain has a rush of neurochemicals, neurotransmitters, that loads of stuff goes on in your brain. And quite simply, the chemicals that are running through your brain because you feel great, they switch on all the learning centers in your brain. So all of your wonderful higher order cognitive functioning, so your ability to problem solve, to form connections with people, to innovate, that's all switched on, right? Which is why you see the business case. So there's a really simple reason why companies where people have better experiences outperform. And the opposite to that, if you're in a kind of a really stressful, toxic environment, your brain goes into fight or flight. Your brain doesn't really differentiate between thousands of years ago an actual real kind of life or death situation, and now where actually it's just a toxic environment, your brain reacts in the same way. And it says, you know, we need to kind of really focus on surviving. So let's just be really tunnel vision here. Let's switch off all that wonderful higher order cognitive functioning, because we don't need to innovate at the moment. We don't need to form connections. We don't need to problem solve. We just need to get through this. So that's what's happening in a toxic environment, which is why those companies don't perform. So there's some really sort of simple but profound neuroscientific evidence that shows why this works. It's not fluffy. So I use that quite a lot with cynical stakeholders to convince them of the power of this stuff. If that makes sense.
I love it. In my own experiences, what I have seen be really effective at making a business case is yes, we cannot be associated with arts and crafts.
Mm,
Closer you can be tied to generating revenue or
yeah,
reducing expense, the
yeah.
more voice you have.
Mm,
So anything that sales needs, anything that marketing needs, they get because it's tied to revenue. Anything operations wants to do that's tied to reducing costs, they get, right? So anything that's like 1 degree away from the bottom line is power. And
mm,
so now we have to find what's the magic connection between the work you're doing in internal communication, designing these experiences, making an argument for we have to modernize how we communicate and engage our people.
yeah,
So to me, the all those things that you're citing, I think are fantastic to start this case. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're going to come up with, we're going to be able to attract
mhm,
more easily. You're going to
yeah,
retain people for longer. And a quick side note, so my daughter, when she started her first job out of college, she's 27 now, and she called me right away. She said, Dad, what's the deal with all the email? Like they just don't, they're not used
yeah,
to it. I grew up with it. I don't mind it. That's just how I was taught that's work. She's not, right? So she's starting in the workplace used to personalization. She's
mm,
used to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Spotify, Amazon, Hulu. Everything is tailored to her. And then she gets her first job, and it's like she took a time warp back to 1992.
yeah,
Like the internet looks like Craigslist. There's a ton of email that none of it's relevant to me. Like that is the future of work right there. And so we have to keep up with them. And there are ways to do that. So ultimately, it is building this business case. Why? Like all of
yeah,
this, I hope people are saying, I totally get it. I hear what you're saying. I love it. I wish my company would support me on this road to do these things. And I think they will if you build the right case that this is
mhm,
going to help with people. And the high level, and I know a lot of these people are communicators and they normally don't like numbers, and that's okay. Most companies, the single biggest line item is people. On
mm,
average, it is 70% of what a company is spending is on its workforce.
mm,
If you can help improve
yeah,
retention, if you
yeah,
can attract people, if you can show we can keep, Gen Z, or I don't even know what the next gen is after that, longer in our workforce, that is real money to the bottom line, and we're doing the right thing.
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, again, this evidence-based approach and really standing in the shoes of people we're designing for really adds value to that because there's a whole load of assumptions about what we should be communicating and why, and a whole load of wasted time and effort. I think about my in-house days and some of the things that we get dragged into. A lot of it was vanity projects from senior leaders that had a powerful voice. They wanted their thing communicated, and there wasn't really a rationale behind it. And I think organizations have really woken up to that. But for example, the onboarding experience I've just talked about, like comms can add such value to the way that that communication experience, because it's such a critical first experience, right? That kind of
Yes.
first impression can make or break. And if you've got, for example, high turnover the first 6 months, a lot of that will be down to poor communication, right? And yet, how often do comms get involved with onboarding? Very rarely. So there's some real great opportunities through taking the approach that we're going to argue here, that where comms can get really involved in helping to improve the communication experience. So cutting through the noise, helping efficiencies, helping productivity, helping people understand what they need to do really quickly rather than sifting through, loads of stuff that's not relevant. So there's lots of ways I think you can make the business case. And I've got, again, examples of that, which I can share afterwards of how that's been done. And lots of our ROI that says when you get the comms right, it does impact the finances. So I think you can make that case really eloquently if you need to.
I agree. So I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation because
Yeah.
the last thing we want is people to join us for this conversation thinking about the future of IC, and they get all excited and then they're hit with the reality of, but
Yeah.
how do I actually impart change on my organization? So that was awesome. Thank you. Brad Whitworth, thanks for the comment. So we've got one comment from Brad basically saying, I love the direction of consumer grade communications. Two workers doing the same job may have very different communications needs and preferences. Great comment by Brad. So again, if you have any questions as we're continuing on, please fire them away. I'm now going to not show you the art of what's possible. I'm going to show you the art of what's current. This is what people are doing today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you see my screen, Emma?
It's just about to come up. I think it's, yeah, there it is. It's there.
Okay. So what you're looking at is it's a feature of broadcast. And again, if I go back to where we started, I can't think of another way to really communicate and engage at scale without machine learning and AI. So I'm going to give you a quick example. This is from one of our demo environments, but all of our customers use this functionality, and I'm going to walk you through how this actually works. So the first thing is really to Brad's comment. So let's assume Athos, which is our fictitious financial services company, has 10,000 employees. The way most companies work today is someone is building a newsletter, kind of a corporate newsletter. It's going to go out on a scheduled cadence, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern because they're based in New York. Great. And 99% of companies work this way. The issue is Rachel is an individual. And so what this is doing is it's looking at all of the content that's available and it's building this news digest just for Rachel. So instead of sending the same thing to 10,000 people, we're sending 10,000 unique versions of what's going on at this organization based on the following criteria. What does Rachel need to see that she hasn't already seen yet? Meaning, if she's already seen this on the intranet, why are we including the same piece of content over again by default? What does she want to see? So this is the machine learning piece of Rachel's always engaging with community service related content. Well, that should be higher priority for Rachel. So what this is doing is, and I'm going to talk about how this ties to other channels. If people have questions, please fire those out. So the first thing it's doing is it's going to find this content for Rachel that she needs to see and hasn't seen yet. So this top story, a closer look at our return to office policy. She hasn't seen this anywhere else, so this is her lead story. For Emma, she might have a totally different lead story. Maybe she's read this on the intranet or read it in a separate email, read it in Teams. She will have a different lead story because she's already consumed this. And this is exactly how Netflix is treating you. If you have already consumed something and you switch to your laptop, you're not starting over in that series. It knows exactly where you left off. So the idea is make sure that people are getting what they need and what they want. So as I scroll down, this is all for Rachel, this open enrollment story. The communicator said, this is always above the fold for the next 30 days, even if Rachel's already read it. So you have total control as a communicator, but you're not building, you're not designing this. You're not saying Rachel must get this Wednesday at 11 a.m. Rachel could say, I want this Saturday at 8 a.m. with my coffee. And Emma might want it Wednesday at 4, or the company can specify, no, everybody still gets it Wednesday at 11. Emma might want it in Spanish. That's okay too. So if we really think about how do you honestly make it about the recipient, we have to give them some level of control. If I know you've already seen this content somewhere else, I have to promise you it will be relevant to you. And that is the beauty of technology, where we can fulfill that promise. All of this is built for Rachel. So this is all information she needs to see but hasn't seen yet. And then here's the powerful piece. How do you engage at scale? Recommended for you. So these are things that match her interests. This is outside of the bucket of need to know information. This is want to know information. She's really interested in this content. Great. But she hasn't seen it anywhere else. So this is all built for this individual based on their interests. So let me pause here. See if Emma, if you have any questions, if there's anyone else that has any questions, because I'm going to talk about how does this fit in a holistic employee experience.
Oh, go for it. Happy for you to continue.
All right. Okay. So I'll keep going. So this is one example. And probably a lot of people on this webinar are saying that really reminds me of my Apple News feed or Google News feed or whatever, where it's built for you. It knows what you've consumed. It knows what you like. It's getting smarter. Yes, it's exactly that model, with the caveat of, unlike a marketing exercise, 20% off this weekend, no one's going to lose their job or benefits if they don't see it. So within a corporate environment, there is communication that is not optional. You have to know this. You have to know open enrollment. So where this becomes very different and why I think internal comms is so complicated is that one sticking point of you must know this. How do we make sure that people know what they need to know without overwhelming them, spamming them? Well, that's where the back end of AI is understanding that Emma's already consumed this piece of content on the intranet or in Teams. These channels that you've already rolled out and deployed should be intelligent and talking to each other. So if I see something in Teams, why is that in my newsletter? Why is that my lead story on the carousel if I've already consumed this somewhere else? That's where it becomes really powerful. A holistic experience. The channel is not the answer. The experience is the answer. And for communicators, when they first kind of hear this concept of, wait, I can just create as much amazing content as I would like, and I just hit publish, and then AI and machine learning will build individual experiences for every single employee, tailored to them, wherever they go in our organization. Yes. And all of a sudden, light bulbs go off. So they say, wait a minute. So this return to office policy, the way we would do that today is we would build a distribution list. We're hitting send. We may or may not have analytics as to who engaged with it. And what happens to the person that joins the organization tomorrow or next week? How will they ever see this? That's right. Email is static and it's a difficult channel. So the idea of you hitting publish, that amazing content can find the recipient for as long as you tell it to. If you say that this piece of content is valid for the next 90 days, someone that joins your organization 45 days from now, this content automatically rolls to them if they meet the criteria wherever they go across any channel because they are supposed to see it and they haven't. So when we think about the scale issue, and I go back to your example of kind of 90 personas and we're a small team and how would we do this? It's impossible. It is the beauty of technology that allows us to create this consumer grade experience, just like Netflix makes you feel, and deliver on this promise of we're a company and you need to know X, Y, and Z. So when we show this to internal communicators, they're like, oh my God, I can do what I love to do. I'm not dealing with distribution lists. I'm not dealing with who still needs to see this. I'm not worried about creating too much content. I'm not dealing with Outlook and the craziness of HTML. I don't have to deal with any of that. I can spend that extra time doing great journalism and creating great stories. This is where I think the magic of AI and really great content development marry. So I just wanted to give this as a like super quick. I already, it's not super quick. I am verbose. I already know that. I apologize. I get excited about this is how it should feel. And this is available today. So I wanted to show that. And then I want to show one other thing just because, and I think we're getting some questions in. Let me show. Where I think the future of analytics and insights is headed. So this is just a little demo I have built to show where I think we are headed. So most people, a lot of communicators shockingly have no analytics whatsoever. They can't even tell you how many people opened or clicked or anything. So it's really hard to make decisions based on that. So today, what you'll get with a lot of platforms, including us, is the ability to go in and build reports and segment, but you really have to interrogate the data. You have to say, I want to know engagement by hospital for this healthcare organization. I want to know which one is the most engaged, which one's the least engaged. You have to run the report, you have to do all the work, and you have to make decisions. Where I think it is headed is this, starting here. Automatically looking at your analytics and your people and being proactive instead of reactive. We are at a point now, and it is amazing. And I'm a technologist, and this is amazing to me. It is going to be your best friend. It is going to be sitting next to you, and it is going to be telling you, here's how you engage this really hard to engage cohort. Or did you know? Like shift focus to shorter emails for frontline managers because it's watching out on your behalf. And you can go further. So this is actually connected. We have a sample data set. Suggest an open enrollment campaign headline for frontline workers. What segments are most engaged with leadership updates? Just ask what you want to know, right? So why this is important is we go back to this business case of how do you show your value and tie it to the bottom line. If you are able to interrogate, it's like I could ask it anything. In the moment I'm stuck, let's see, summarize top communication channels. Okay, I'll just take one of the preset ones and have it do the analysis for me, create my ROI for me, show me the answers, and give me actionable things that I can do with our own data. So this is thinking. Hopefully this will come back. There we go. So there's no reason to do this on your own anymore. It's like having an expert sitting next to you at all times, giving you things to try to drive engagement. Why? Because the more engaged our people are, the less we have to pay to replace them. It's my biggest gripe with internal communicators is they are too modest. I wish they would take more credit for the amazing work that they do. So this is super high level. I just wanted to give people like firsthand experience with, it's not the art of the possible, it is the art of the now. This is all available to you now. All right, I talked for way too long. I apologize. I get carried away. Let me stop sharing. I'll throw it back to you.
All good. It's all good. And I wish that I'd had a tool like this when I was in-house. I think it's mind-blowing, and it's what we kind of dreamt of doing all those years ago. And we can now, the technology has caught up with the ideas, right? So I'm aware of time. I just want to share a couple more slides really quickly, and I promise I'll be quick, just because I kind of want to get into a little bit of the how. Just very quickly, from a from a kind of human-centered, people-first approach. So we've got a kind of what we call an ecosystem, a framework. You use as much or as little of this as you want, but this is the kind of the journey that you go through. So step 1 and step 5 will feel very familiar. So getting ready, business case, stakeholder mapping, etc. Step 5, activating whatever it is you want to activate. It's the bit in the middle, the 2, 3, 4. This is the kind of human-centered approach. And we've got a bunch of tools that walk you through this. So notice we are not talking about solutions till step 4. So internal communicators are fixers, they're doers, they want to get straight to like, how are we going to sort this? What this kind of approach does, it sort of says, just hold back a bit. Let's get really clear on where we are today, where we need to get to. So let's for example, let's journey map. Let's map the IC journey. Let's use insight tools here. Let's future vision. That's what step 2 is all about. Step 3 is about empathy. How can we genuinely stand in the shoes of the people we're designing for? Is the problem we're trying to solve the right problem for them? Or are we picking something that actually doesn't matter to them? Here's where we use things like personas and empathy maps, expert interviews. Then and only then, use how might we questions, do we get to the solution space. So here is when we ideate and we prototype and we test. But even something as simple as prototype and testing, I see very few IC teams doing that. And it's such a powerful tool to just try some small scale experiments, try some things out, get a kind of minimum viable product together and see how it lands with people before you go wholesale on the big across company solution. Which means by the time you get to step 5, you've got real confidence in whatever it is you're rolling out. So we've got a bunch of tools that sit underneath there. So just a couple of examples there. So journey mapping, empathy mapping, ideation. So to finish up, if you're interested in finding out more about this, because I'm all about being practical and pragmatic, I don't want to share with you all these amazing kind of future thinking ideas without giving you the tools to do this. And as Tarik said, he shared with you kind of an amazing tool to kind of Netflix your internal comms. And I'm sharing with you some tools here that will help you to think people first internal comms. So if you want to do this stuff, I'm just going to share this really quickly with you. Hang on a sec. You can sign up to the EX space for free. We've got a load of tools on there that can help you with all of this. So this will be in the packs afterwards. So please do sign up because all the stuff we've talked about will be on there. But yeah, for me, you can be an architect of the future. So AI is not going to replace you, but if you don't embrace it, then I think the skills of the past will become obsolete. So I think we are in a great place to really lead the transformation with the tools I've talked about, the tool Tarik's talked about. So I think it's a really genuinely exciting time for us. So I'm going to finish up there. I don't think we've got much time for questions. I'm happy to stay on the line if people want to stay on the line. I'm not going to rush off or anything. So happy to answer any questions. But yeah, you'll get a whole bunch of stuff. We're going to give you some signed copies when the book comes out. It's not coming out till sort of autumn this year. Got a few bits and pieces we're going to kind of give away as well. So Tarik, I'll hand back over to you to kind of finish up.
Well, so thank you very much. You're wonderful. I love your perspective. I knew the first time we talked, we are so aligned on how the world should be. So thank you for sharing that. I hope everyone found it as beneficial as I did. As I mentioned at the beginning, you're going to get a lot. So you'll be receiving an email probably next week with links or attachments of all of these things. We did have a couple of questions, so I'll just get to those real quick. I'm also happy to stay on the line if anyone would like to ask additional questions. Someone asked, what about the importance of repetition? Totally agree. Internal communicators are used to being in total control. And so one of the things that we allow for is you can say, I need this to run for the next 30 days, even if they've engaged with it, if they've consumed it. I need this to run until they click on it. I need this to run until they acknowledge something. I need you to acknowledge you've read the return to office policy and you have real-time data. So absolutely, you're in total control of repetition. Do employees feel like Big Brother is watching them? I love this question. We get this all the time. And the answer is it's no. They love the personalization. They're not seeing anything different. It's still Teams, it's still SharePoint, it's still a newsletter. All of a sudden, they're just noticing super relevant to me. It's super tailored to me. And engagement goes through the roof because we're rebuilding that trust relationship with them. And communicators love it because they get so much more reach on the work that they're doing. And in certain GDPR, CCPA compliant, so if you have, for example, employees in Germany, they could choose, hey, I don't want personalization. So totally up to the organization in terms of how they want to handle that. Do readers need to read everything in an article or to watch the whole video to fulfill having seen mode? Great question. And no. So the way we're tracking that is clicks. So if you've read something, great. The other thing that we didn't mention is that one of the most frequently heard requests from communicators is people reach out and say, I know I saw this. Where was it? And so why are we not building a microsite for every single employee with all communication across all channels that is searchable for them? So an example I always like to give is you posted something around tuition reimbursement 9 months ago. It didn't matter to me then, but I'm thinking about it now. I can just go to my microsite. I can type in tuition reimbursement. It searches all channels. There it is. So that's how we think about it. We have a couple more questions. Let's see. Lima, Peru. Hello. This is awesome. In industrial companies like ours, one of the key challenges we're facing is how AI is reshaping both internal and external communications. There's a growing pressure, especially for our leaders, to meet new expectations for clarity, immediacy, and even perfection that AI tools seem to set as the new standard. This brings up an important question for us. How do we help our leaders maintain authentic, I'm going to give this one to you, authentic human-centered communication, especially in person, in a world where AI sets the benchmark for how we should communicate? What a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about working with AI, not replacing AI. So at the bottom line, I mean, there's lots of studies that have been done about, do people kind of, are they offended by, for example, copy written by AI? And the jury's still out. It's really early days. But actually what we hear is that people are just like, just give me the message, right? This really comes down to knowing your people and getting to know your people and taking that design thinking approach, that people first approach, because again, it's not a one size fits all. You can't make assumptions, right? Because every company is different. So for me, it's like working with AI. The bottom line is your chief executive, right? The internal comms person wrote their message for those years. What's the difference, really? Actually, and in my experience, what we hold really precious and dear as internal communicators, a lot of the time our people aren't even really that bothered about it. So it's about finding out what's really important to them. So of course, there's always some stuff, to your point, Tarik, we have to communicate to people from a compliance regulatory point of view. But a lot of this is about, figuring out what works for them. Do they care, if the chief exec update's written with AI? Someone still needs to have some sort of input to write that. They can't write it completely, AI can't write it completely on its own. So I think it's a bit of a rambling answer, so I apologize. And it's about really figuring out what's going to work for your organization. Some organizations are much more cynical and suspicious, the big brother thing, others a lot less so. So, and also I think that transparency around how we're using it, where we're using it, why we're using it. I think most people kind of get the rationale, go, okay, that makes sense. I get that. Clearly, using that saves us like, half a day than if we were to do it ourselves. So yeah, that's a great idea. I get why we'd use it for that particular task. So I think it's about being really transparent about how you're using it and where you're using it. And there's a whole heap of stuff around kind of policies and ethics, and how to use it and where to use it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of really growing around that's really well worth looking into.
I would agree. I think the two terms that he used in the question were authentic and perfect. And I think those don't go together.
Yeah.
People aren't perfect. And
Yeah.
I think, so I was just, as Emma knows, I was in Portugal recently, and my daughter came to visit, and she had the old megapixel camera from like 2009. So why are you using that? And she said, I love the look. It looks retro. It's not filtered. It's real. I think there is, because of AI and how everything is going to look and sound and feel the same, I think it's an opportunity for those that are authentic and make mistakes and stumble. And I think people will be starving for authenticity. So I don't know. That's my take.
Maybe my typos will be more forgiven in the future then, because I am the queen of typos. So I say, being ADHD, I move at quite a pace, as you could probably guess, and my typing is awful. And maybe my typos will be embraced, Tarik. That's quite a nice one to end on, isn't it?
All right, we got two more questions. I don't know if people want to
Okay,
stick around or not, but I'm going to ask anyway.
go for it.
So this is a big one. Will AI help the employment market or not? What's your take?
I'm a positive psychologist. I'm an abundant thinker. I'm a glass half full. I think it will. I think it frees us up to do I said it just frees us up to do the work that we've always wanted to do, right? So, I work a lot in the world of HR, employee experience, engagement, internal comms, and I just see opportunity. And there's always going to be a need for the human side. There's always going to be a need for us to, we can pick up on body language and nuances, and we can walk into you can walk into an office or a manufacturing plant. You can pick up straight away what the vibe is, right? You get a feel. And it's something that's unspoken. You couldn't even explain to somebody why. Like, I walk into that room or that office or that reception, and it feels good or it feels toxic, right? We're still going to need to do that work, right? That AI cannot replace that. It won't be able, yes, it won't be able to do that. Yes, I don't know in the future, but certainly in my lifetime, I don't believe we're still going to need to do that, because it's not going to pick up on those nuances and those kind of, the more, I guess, the differentiation between different cultures. So that's where I think the opportunity is.
I agree with you. So I would say the short answer is it depends. So
Mm.
there are certain areas where if I was in that job, I would be concerned, not for internal comms. I think internal comms will flourish with AI because it's going to free you up to do the things that you're really good at that it can't do. Interviewing, employee spotlights, video, asking follow-up questions. It will, and again, I'm not going to say ever, never, but today, we're nowhere close to that. So I think the value of internal comms is going to be even greater. And I think because companies are so risk averse, the idea of just a black box sending out communication, that is never going to happen. So I feel like for internal comms as a profession, I think it will be very good for you. I would be worried if I was in marketing. That I would be worried about, but you guys are safe. Finally, yes, internal comms is greater than marketing. All right, last question. Overall, love it and completely on board with all the sentiment and content here. But what about validation? When every single communication is different, how can we validate its accuracy? I can take that one.
Hmm.
Okay, so the actual content nuggets are the same. How we format them, how AI is choosing what Emma gets first, what I get first, those can be different, but it's really based on what Emma needs to know and hasn't already seen. And so it's really the analytics on the back end is one way to validate that. So you can see engagement across a piece of communication. You can see engagement by job type, by location. So there's lots of ways to validate. The other thing that we did was we built really cool tech, a simulator. So for example, if you wanted to see what the CEO is going to get this week, you can just put in the CEO's name and you're going to see this is what AI is going to produce for that person or your boss or whatever. So there's lots of different ways to validate it. But ultimately it's the metrics. So when you start to see engagement really go through the roof because it's hyper tailored and relevant, that's the ultimate validation. All right, Emma, we've actually gotten through all the questions. I appreciate anyone that's stuck around. I want to thank you again. And then just to follow up, we will have all of this in an email next week to everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. I really enjoyed the conversation, and really excited to hear people's feedback on what we talked about today.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.